So, have you ever wondered how people actually train and get their physical capacity to the place where they can really do more than they ever thought was possible? How does that actually happen? Well, today we are going to uncover that in my interview with Nick Trubee. We open the door for all things endurance, talking about top end capacity and how we can walk into discomfort with a truly aligned spirit to yield results in our life that are far beyond what we thought was possible. Welcome to Whole Human Capacity. Mind, body, spirit, and emotions all in alignment. This show is for the high achievers who are done and running on hustle, done running on stress, and ready for ambition without having to give up what your heart truly desires. Here we're going to talk about what it means to live your life as a whole human, how your nervous system, your inner knowing, and your daily choices all work together, and how you can build a life that actually feels like yours and not one that just looks good on paper. Hi, I'm Erica Resch, a retired family physician, a mom of three, and a life coach who has rebuilt my life around what I refuse to regret. Hey there, welcome back. I have the most amazing guest for us today, which I'm so excited. And in full disclosure, this is Dr. Nick Trubee, who is also my brother-in-law, who is also, I guess what I call you, my personal trainer, who is also he fills many roles in my life. And I'm excited to have him here with us today because the two of us, find fascination in so many different little rabbit holes of things, and we have awesome discussions. And I want to pick his brain today and share all of this good knowledge that Nick has and his way of seeing the world and seeing the body and seeing how the body interacts in the world. I think is a true gift, and it's helped me so much. And I am very excited to share it with everybody who's listening today. So, welcome, Nick.
Thank you. No pressure whatsoever.
No pressure. So the first thing I want to do is like kind of per usual, but I think it's really helpful. I think, giving you some space to introduce yourself to allow for the stage to be set for some of your perspectives and where you come from and how you derive all of these awesome answers that you come up with to these questions. So tell me a
Absolutely.
little about you.
Yeah, no, the more I think about this, I think the best way to explain it is I've lived kind of two different professional lives, very similar to yourself. And one was a more traditional role where you kind of go through you climb the ladders and you get to the positions and, you're interacting with a world that looks different than you thought it would be. um, and you make a shift. So, I spent a good 10 years in academia doing research and teaching courses and engaging with the community, setting up, different projects and things like that, all in the realm of exercise. And I'm thinking back now, it's 7 years now outside of that life into more of an entrepreneurial, much more freeing environment where I can kind of make the rules and work with people on my own terms. So that's been a really fun and eye-opening experience in many different ways, but I think it's really allowed me to grow more than I ever imagined that I could have, and allowed me to be creative in ways that I had never really envisioned until you're all in on it.
Hmm.
So the past 4 or 5 years, it's really been, a majority of the people I work with are women that are perimenopausal and postmenopausal and essentially relearning their bodies. So, a lot of fear where they're afraid of how to use their bodies, exercise their bodies, how to engage in the real world, all of those things. So I think my theory and insight on how to approach those and how I do that for myself is a great fit. And I think that's why it's gone so
Mhm.
well. So,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure if I answered your question at all, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So it kind of leads me into one of the kind of topics I wanted to open with, which is that idea of fear. And so, truthfully, right now, we are taping this at the end of April in 2026, and Nick is helping me to train my body and probably more so my mind
Mm,
than my body, right? Let's be honest, to climb at least one mountain this summer and maybe do some more advanced climbing in the summer of 2027. That's kind of the goal. And really helping me see where I've set limits for what I thought was possible for my body. Some of it based upon past experience, some of it based upon, what I think my age is, or, all these things that we have in our heads. And so I guess my question to you is like, where do you see that? Where do you see that intersection between what we see as possible for ourselves? And how does that show up in how we approach, let's just say, our average everyday workout or whatever movement kind of thing we're doing? Like, how does it
Mhm.
actually in real life show up?
I think the first stage of all of that is you have to really confront your conditioning, your preconditioning, and how your brain has been trained over your entire life, right? It's all we have to work from in a construct of our, you know, mental approach and psychological approach is previous experience. And the further away those previous experiences become in time, I think we lose some tangibility to it, and it feels further away from it. And then we have questions about the true unknown of what if I do climb a mountain? Can I
Yeah.
actually do that and enjoy the experience?
Yeah.
You know? Um, so I think the first part is you really just have to approach it head on and realize that this is such a great opportunity for experimentation, for adventure, for, you know, seeing what you are truly made of without any kind of pressure,
Mhm.
right? I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to achieve these things when in reality, we really just want to go and enjoy them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the intersection is like, how can I create an environment that I, number one, have gratitude going into and get to enjoy that time, but also get to grow from it. So,
Yeah.
um, it, the more I think about it, the more it becomes just disassociating from your thoughts about what's actually achievable and showing up every day and providing what that level of achievability is.
Mhm. And for me, what I've learned in this process is, I think a lot of us who tend to be goal driven people, we think that that's going to be okay. I'm going to do that and I'm going to experience that on the mountain. But what you've designed this workout for me where if I wanna do that, I gotta experience that every day,
Yeah.
right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not something that you're like, "Oh, I'll do all these things, and then I will experience that." It's really shifting how you approach each session, I'll just use that word, right? To, um, get to the place where you are in the gratitude, because the next thing that was coming to me to ask you was this word that you use, and I'll be honest, from a, physiological definition, maybe you could give us the true definition of this, and then also what I wanna know is how you incorporate that into, like, how you design a workout, and the word was top-end fitness,
Mhm.
and you said that, like, "We're gonna increase your top-end fitness," right? So, first of all, tell me what that means to you, right? Anatomically, physiologically. And then what does that mean to the individual who's receiving that on the receiving end of the workout?
Sure. I'm going to preface this question with, you know, every, how you mentioned we're providing that kind of level of engagement every day, right? It's not just the mountain work, we're doing it every day. And part of that is the two words that always come to my mind are trust and confidence. Because if
Mhm.
we don't have those two levers, it's very challenging to get to the point where you can do it, right?
Yep.
And that pairs with that word top end fitness for me. Because if we don't ever challenge and actually see what that looks like, we won't have the confidence to know we can go out and do that challenging top end fitness
Yeah.
thing, right? So, there's many different ways of defining it. The easiest one would be like, what is your one repetition maximum for an
Mhm.
exercise? What's the most amount of resistance you can do for repetition at failure? Or, how quickly can I do the movement in terms of velocity? Different ways of doing it. I've kind of stumbled on what I think really works really well and is actually approachable for most people is if we're thinking about resistance training, what can you do 5, 6, 7 times until you say like I'm done, right? And I think that does a couple things for us. It shows us that we have the capacity to continue when it gets harder. Right? It's not just one rep; it's 5 or 6 or 7 really difficult reps. So we're building that muscle of knowing we can do this really challenging thing that is like you're a little iffy to get into it, but then you're providing your body an example, and your brain follows along with that. Yeah. On the flip side, that is kind of the sweet spot for really improving your strength capacity. You can do something that's very challenging, and you can do it more than just once. We need to know we can do something more than just once.
Yeah.
Right? We need to provide our body a million examples before our brain actually says, "Oh wow, I've done that 47 times now. I feel like I can probably do that." You know, so it's that top end fitness word number one. I think it has it's catchy in that your brain sees it as like something that's very interesting. And then when you provide the examples of it, it has the chance to buy in because your body is providing those examples.
Yeah. What I really think for me, it's been right because I think we might both agree on the idea of like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So to me, the as we say back door, right? The back door approach to come in and kind of circumvent, some of the fight or flight patterning or circumvent the mind a little bit is to say, well, I'm going to train to climb this mountain over here, right? And I'm going to stretch my top end fitness by doing these certain things that Nick has me doing. But what we're really doing is we're telling the body, like, you can do this. And we're training the body and the nervous system to accommodate to a more expanded amount of energy to hold at one time, whether that's actually literally in the amount of weight I'm holding, right? Or you can put that in any type of energetic term, whether that's emotional energy or whether that's creative energy or whatever that might be, right? So I think it's really fascinating that when you said that to me, it really clicked. It's like, oh, right? This is the key piece that's going to extrapolate in all arenas of my life where I really want to go by doing this, right? And to your point, what's shifted for me in this process is really realizing in a humbling way, like, this is the everyday, Erica. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like, I think when you've come from a paradigm and a way of living and thinking, even though it's shifted a lot for me, it's still in there a little bit, right? Where it's like the destination is the thing, right? And this is really like the journey is the destination kind of way of living and how you train and how you operate and what you do with all of your clients, right? It's really the journey. It's not the destination. That is the destination. So I just think it's fascinating how I've seen gains in my confidence and in my willingness to do certain things and go beyond where I thought I could go as a result of doing this training with you.
Mhm.
Right? Because it all goes hand in hand. It's really, I don't know. It's been awesome for me. So the next thing that piggybacks on that is really wanting to ask you your thought process on the word endurance and what that means to you and how you tie in this idea of top end fitness into endurance, into the long game.
Yeah, both of those, the top word that connects the two again is is that trust word, where you have to have that almost undying level of trust in yourself that you can do it. And if you don't, let's say you're halfway there and need to pivot, then that's okay too. Because you likely have learned something that will either get you there next time or will get you higher than you ever thought you could be. So that level of trust, it all ties in for me from, the more I think back to my, you know, uh, kind of teens and early 20s with competitive golf to now from an entrepreneurial side of things where you go for a project or a program or whatever that you're putting together that would have been terrifying 5 years ago, but now it aligns perfectly with exactly what you feel like you're meant to be doing. Um, so number one is that trust that you have 100% trust in yourself that you can do whatever you're going to do. And if it doesn't happen, then it probably shouldn't have happened, or it's a happy accident. It's kind of
Mhm.
a generic term. Um, so from the endurance perspective, I've done enough endurance things in my life where, the training that you put into it is just like what you're doing now with your program. And the resistance training part of that is that you're just providing more than enough examples to your brain that your body is capable of doing the task.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you challenge yourself progressively to up level. I always use that kind of scale where your top end fitness is, eye level, and all the tasks that you're doing are down by your knees. And that big gap is your huge reserve that you've built because your top end fitness is so high. So when you do have a challenging part of the climb or the project or whatever, maybe you're at hip height now, right? You still have a huge reserve compared to when you don't have those levels of fitness or whatever you're kind of putting that analogy into. You're always working at shoulder level. You know how much higher to go, right? You're always working at
Yeah.
almost nearly max capacity. So it's difficult to achieve those things. And that's where the fight or flight comes in. So from an endurance perspective, it becomes for me a fun mental game in that you have that wholehearted level of trust that this is just what you do and it's fun and it's why you have put so much effort into the path to get there. Um, and I kind of figured you asked me this question, and I've kind of thought back to all the times I've had kind of the experience where you're truly in flow and you really have just completely disassociated your brain from your body almost and just let your body
Mhm.
take over. Right? The brain just kind of goes along for the ride and just is like kind of head in the clouds, like, oh, that's a pretty cool, you just kind of almost enjoying everything from that level of gratitude and trust. And then your body you've provided it enough examples to fully take the reins and go for it.
So my question then is, what's the secret sauce to get to that place, right? Like where, I always like to think of flow as like this place where there's focused relaxation, where it's like there's an acute inward or attention, right? But yet there's this relaxed calmness to us. It's like this very paradoxical,
Engaged,
seemingly,
yeah,
right?
engaged relaxation.
Right? Like it's yeah, like it's a very paradoxical kind of place to be, but it is the sweet spot. I find it to be the sweet spot in anything we do, right? Whether that's something athletic or whether that's in our parenting, whether that's in, like it's kind of like where to kind of hold the reins tight and where to let go. And like you're comfortable in that space. And it is this place where I believe to be truly in flow, you have to also have trust, right? Because the body mechanistically has to feel safe. The nervous system has to feel safe to allow that level of relaxation to be there. But
Mhm.
yet there's also this like fascination component where there's intrigue and there's curiosity enough, right, to get the attention to be where it needs to be.
Mhm.
So what I hear you saying is it's kind of like this process of showing the brain and the body enough times to provide safety, to provide that foundation, right? So much so that the body can then kind of do its thing and the brain mind does its thing and it allows for this harmonious place to come. But you said this word that I think is the key to it all is gratitude, right? How have you used gratitude to really increase I don't wanna say your training, that's not the right word to use, but to really hone in on the way of being that you have found successful for you and that you now share with other people who come to you for your work and how you approach not only just athletic training, right, but how you approach life, right?
Mhm.
Where's gratitude fit into that place for you?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to the start of the conversation where you have a choice. And I think most people, at some extent, their biggest barrier is fear, right? They're being driven or led by fear, even to, contact me to start working with me. Then initially it's because of fear. And, you know, I, we approach that and I approach that directly in saying that, there are risks involved. There's risks in everything that we choose to do, regardless of what that is. Um, that's just the nature of living. So we could choose to be directed by that and kind of always chasing our tails and living in that fight or flight experience. Or we can, totally do a 180 and find things that we can truly be grateful for that we're still able to do, right? Whatever that level is. And then I try and make it relative to where, you know, don't even look at the number that you're lifting. The weight that you're lifting doesn't matter, right? That's just a number. So honing in on those fundamentals of what is my body and mind still very capable of doing, right? That's our baseline. And from there, we can stair step our way up and gradually do things to where we up level that capacity. And if we're looking at it from that approach, it's that almost, the 6 month version later looks back and says, wow, I could have never even imagined doing something like that. Right. Because
Mhm.
we're approaching it from, I'm truly grateful for what this day has brought me and for what my body can achieve and my mind can do and how those two things can connect. And in this short period of time, I've up leveled 40% in whatever area we're hoping to improve on, right? And I think within that, nested in that experience is that level of gratitude that almost naturally comes with it.
Mhm.
But you have to really be, y- y- initially you have to really be upfront with, you know, where this choice can take you. It could ultimately come to somewhere where, you know, the fear that initially was there because of what you're worried could happen, it might happen, but it's likely not going to, or the percentage is much less.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's true. If we're honest with ourselves, at least for me, you know, what drove me to ask you for help was the fear of not making it up the mountain, right?
And
Like, let's just be
it's
honest, right?
99% of people are
Or to have it, because I do know what you talk about when you talk about operating with minimal reserve. And that's something that I don't like doing that, and I think a lot of us don't even know the feeling in our body in any aspect of our life of what it really feels like to even have 50% reserve,
Mhm.
like, let alone 70 to 80% reserve or however you wanna quantify it, right? Um, I think so much of our life, at least mine was, R really, I mean, people say that term "running on fumes," and you're kinda like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," but, like, at the end of the day, it's true, like, it's really true, and a lot of us are very successful, extremely successful using, like, a smidgen of our actual capability and the reserve that is available to us if we actually tapped into it, right? Um, because that takes a different frame of reference. It takes a different question to ask, right? To tap into the reserve and to build the reserve can't come from, "Hey, help me not make it up this mountain." It has to come from desire. Like, I desire to enjoy my trip up the mountain. I desire to actually take it all in and not fear I'm gonna make it to the top. I desire to have a really awesome experience as I do it. I desire to come down and not be injured, right? To the best of
Mhm.
my ability. No, we can't predict everything, but to do
Sure.
the best I can. Or I really desire to not take 2 weeks to recover after that type of thing, right? That is the invitation that then opens up the ability to now say, "Wait, there's reserve. Like, I can actually do this with something behind me, something fueling me, and not just from a physical level, which you've seen me do in our adventure races, like take my body so far to the edge because my mind won't say stop, right? It's to the point where my body literally won't go anymore.
Mhm.
That's all I knew to do. That's literally all I knew to do, right? Versus what's resonated for me is this word endurance because it is a whole different mindset, right? It is a different mindset to say, I to me, the word endurance is not just like to endure, right? It's more so like the idea of this is going to be the long game and I'm going to enjoy the long game and I'm in it for the long game. Like, however that long that game takes, whether
Mhm.
that's going up a mountain, it takes me 6 hours, 8 hours, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's a lifetime thing that you're doing, whatever it is. So I'm just offering, I think what you've opened for me that's been really helpful to share is in the times where I've not wanted to do the things on the list that you put on the list.
Mhm.
Was really tapping into gratitude and being like, "Man, I took care of a lot of patients who, at my age, could not literally lift this much weight and step up onto a box.
Uh-huh.
If they took every ounce in their being to do it, they physically could not do that. And I'm grateful I can do that. And man, does that shift something within you.
Uh,
And your body lights up and turns on. And all of a sudden, you're like doing 3 more reps than you thought you were gonna do. Like the power of gratitude. Because I don't know, tell me your thoughts on this. I think when we get into gratitude, we are technically almost into a truly flow state. Like it's a backdoor entry into that state of being
mhm.
that allows us to drop into that and our body to feel safe in it and to accommodate to it. And all of a sudden, you're right. Like you're not thinking about how many reps you just did. You're just going to keep stepping. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, I thought I could do 4 and I just did 8.
Mhm.
Like that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, and sometimes we can't achieve that level until we have intensity enough to engage our nervous system to get to that plane of
Ooh, tell me more about what you mean about that.
right? So, how could you have really perceived that level of gratitude had you not done an intense enough movement to where your body and brain had to up level to send the signals to get your body from point A to point B,
Yeah.
right? If you're looking at it from just a pure scientific perspective, different parts of your brain, more of your brain, and way more, the architecture in the highways to down to your muscle, way more engagement from all of those levels along the entire interstate, right? So I think there's an easy way to hijack that kind of pathway you're hoping for when you really have to either focus extremely like dialed in to do it correctly, or you just slap a bunch of weight on and start doing it. That's the kind of the backdoor way, right?
Yeah.
Because now you really have to engage a lot of your nervous system to do it. Then you're providing those examples in real time, and your brain buys in right away.
How often do you think, just in general, I mean, this is in any arena of life, but we'll just use these weights as an analogy, right? Like where how often do you run into people where you're working with them and they're telling you, like, I'm just going to use like 10 pounds, like, that's a lot. And you're sitting there going, nope, nope, that's not going to get to that place that you're talking
Mhm.
like right now, right? Like, that's not going to change. And I'm not saying change body physique or I'm talking about get the nervous system to a place where you're now stepping beyond what you think is possible.
Mhm.
How often are we kind of what's the word to use, like, naive as the individual, naive, like, we can't see it ourselves is what I'm saying,
Sure.
of where our guess you could use the word upper limit is, right? How often do you come across that?
All the time, which
Yeah.
is, why if you look at your program and pretty much every person I do, there's a spectrum of intensity,
Mhm.
right? You start off purposely easy by design, right? Let's just do this movement lightweight, see how your body responds to it. Okay. Check the box. Your brain's like, okay, that was pretty cool, right? And it's like, all right, we add a little bit more. Do the same approach. Ease your way into it. Okay, worked pretty good. Next, check the box. Set 3, add a little bit more. And the more you provide those examples, the more approachable it is for your brain to say, okay, let's give it a try. Wasn't too bad last time, right? And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, you've got almost 100 pounds on your body and you're stepping up on a box,
Yeah.
right? You just provided that pathway by showing it the entire spectrum of capacity.
Mhm.
Mm. It's going to be impossible to go top tier from sitting on the couch to all out effort, right? We know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you provide that smooth transition, your brain is much more willing to put its guard down and join in on the party.
So this might be a little out of the box connection to this, but I keep getting hearing in my head to talk to you about parenting. How much do you think that same analogy is, like, true in parenting, right? Because you and I have kind of maybe have had some talks about this of like how, at least my opinion, I I think it's really easy in this world today to be comfortable. It's really easy to be comfortable. even as an adult, right? Like most of us in this age that you and I are at, we've done the hard stuff to get our careers to where they're at. And so the idea that we really have to change isn't being forced upon us anymore. We're not broken 20 years old anymore, or, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we've earned the degrees, we have the certifications, we got roofs over our heads, like whatever it is. Like we don't have to do that, like for our basic survival needs, right? So there's got to be this like impetus or this inertia to do what you're talking about. Otherwise, you'll just stay at the easy face, right?
Mhm.
So I also think the same thing is kind of true for our kids in some ways. Like for many of them, I mean, with the technology we have right now and what's coming down the pike, like it's going to be really easy for them to live quote unquote a comfortable life, which is not a problem, right? Except
Mhm.
for in my mind and what I track is like the human spirit needs engagement. The human spirit needs challenge. We as humans need to contribute at a greater and greater level. And that doesn't mean like hustle and grind to that. That means truly give and grow and become like and get to know ourselves and learn. Like we really need that piece of us for our true health, in my personal opinion, right? So how as parents, like do we like can we connect those dots? Because I was even saying to Matt the other day, my husband, like, man, our kids see all of us after we did the hard stuff. Like like we didn't most of us didn't have kids or they weren't old enough to see when we were doing the tough stuff of our life. Like
Mhm.
so what they see now unless we're challenging ourselves, right? I
Right.
really think they need to see us putting weights on our back and carrying weights and saying, like, I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do that, right? I think there's this piece where this process that you're talking can stall out very easily on the first or second step or like rung of that ladder that you're talking about. And to truly feel and live and get to see what you're capable of requires keep increasing the intensity, right?
Mm.
Like, wait, that's why I asked you that question because, like, what you said is the way that my nervous system has gotten to that place of flow and gratitude is because the intensity was increased, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. Give me your thoughts. What comes through as you hear me say all of that?
Yeah, no, I think the first part is it's that, our kids could see the routine. They've kind of grown up with the routine that we've kind of fallen into by comfort or ease or design or whatever, right? And I think the beauty of exercise, and this is one thing that I've always appreciated about it, is you are choosing discomfort,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Now, nothing about I mean, you've experienced it enough now, and you kind of get in the groove. You're chasing. I call it chasing the pump, right? Like you're feeling it feels great. You just can't wait for the next set or whatever, right? But the initial inertia to overcome at the beginning of a workout is a lot because we're choosing to go from rest and relaxation to work, and that's a big barrier that our nervous system has to go around. So I think we do have to um, really be intentional about providing discomfort by choice in our almost daily life, right? And I think when you do that, that's where gratitude does come into the picture because you either helped yourself become a better person, you've shown an example for someone else to see what is possible, or you've directly had an inner engagement with someone that's changed the course of their day or their life, right?
Yeah.
Or all three.
Hmm.
What's not to be grateful for about that?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that goes back to our purpose. What is our purpose? Where do we come from? Where's our connection to God or, spirit or whatever? And, even if you look at the Bible, there's a lot of discomfort there.
Hmm.
There's a lot of wins that come from that discomfort that
Yep.
your life experience be would be full of sadness and sorrow if you didn't engage with that discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah. If we really break it down, I talk a lot about regret and being with patients at the end of their life where they're like, I regret I didn't do this. Or I regret I didn't, do that. And you're right. At the end of the day, it is a choice that they're saying, I regret I didn't choose the discomfort.
Mhm.
That's what they're saying
Wait.
in a different language, but that's what they're saying. Right. Um, and that is a question I ask myself a lot. I think when you really understand that if you're setting the stage and you're setting the course that you're heading to a place of like, this is saying I'm going to do, and not like from a push standpoint, but I'm going to live into my full capacity of how I was designed, how I was created, however that may be for each of us, right? When you're setting those as like your GPS coordinates, you do get into this dialogue with yourself a little bit. Like, am I ever going to regret like not doing that today? Or am I going to regret not doing that workout? Am I going to regret not, you know, going for this next thing that is in the back of my head that I know I really could do, whatever that might be? You start to get yeses, but it's not from a place of, like I said, tricking yourself or forcing yourself. It's actually from a place of like having an honest conversation. Am I choosing to be comfortable, or am I gonna choose a little bit of discomfort and see what happens on the other side? And I really cannot speak more highly of the idea of strength training as a way to become very comfortable with that conversation with yourself.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you really can have it with low risk, right? There's not like you're turning down amazing business opportunities or something like that, where
Mhm.
there's a quote unquote consequence, but like you really get to play with that. And then you really get to feel in your body what it feels like at the end of like, man, I just did something I didn't think I could do. Like, if you were to, like, you're very true. If you were to ask me the weight I'm lifting now, if 6 months ago, if I could lift that, I would have laughed at you,
For
right?
sure.
Truly laughed at you,
Yeah.
right? And it's like this, like, I wish for everybody to have the opportunity to really experience that level of like, man, I am way more capable than I think I am. Like,
Mhm.
way more capable. And through something like this, by lifting weights, like, you actually literally feel that energy in your body and you become accustomed to that. And then I do think it provides this level of safety to your nervous system. So you're more likely to do it in other arenas of your life. And you're more likely to live a life, right? Where you're right. The people around us, our children, whoever, do see you walking into discomfort with a smile on your face. Like,
Mhm.
let's go.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be amazing. Which is, you know, you've been on the start line of endurance races. You've done marathons, you've done adventure races. Like, you know what I'm talking about. There's the people that are just like, "This is the most amazing thing ever," and you're like, "We're about to go run 26
Mhm.
miles."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, there's the those are the people, right? Because they're at a different place in
Mhm.
life with how they see it and how they've trained and how they see life. But to your point, they're not operating from no reserve. They've built the reserve so that the experience of whatever they're on the start line for, even though it might be hard and there's gonna be tough times, is not where they're just pushing with nothing behind them.
Right. Right. And I think there's a lot of connections to that spectrum. I always talk about the spectrum a lot of we're, we're starting easy, we're getting more difficult, right? There's that our nervous system loves to see that spectrum from an approach of just life. Like you need to have the sadness to be able to be grateful for the happiness, right? You need to be grateful for the difficult times to really enjoy the times of ease. If you
Yeah.
don't have one with, you can't have one without the other, right? So I think in the the gold standard example for me, just because I've lived it almost every day, is exercise and resistance training, whatever you want to do, because you are number one by choice presenting yourself to that situation, right? You know there's gonna be discomfort. You know you have some kind of a tactical design of seeing the easy, seeing the difficult, and the all in between, to where you truly do have gratitude for the entire spectrum of those feelings or however you're kind of, making that connection to.
So here's a theory for you, and I want to hear your opinion on it. From my clinical practice, what I could see in my patients was, and you can we can look at the physiology of this, right? Is where the body has come to a place where it can no longer adapt to find homeostasis. So then something tips, right? Whether that's, as I say, from a diabetes perspective, right? The insulin sugar regulation is no longer to find homeostasis. So now we just tip, right?
Well,
How much do you think what you're talking about right now really actually allows the body to, what's the word I want to say, where the body becomes so accustomed and equipped and supported to adapt to find homeostasis that the tips, right, the big shifts are less and less? Do you find that to be true?
I mean, I don't know if I quite understand the question.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, how much, the more that you challenge yourself in going into discomfort, and the more you enter into this place where you're seeing what you're capable, you're allowing your body to incrementally increase, like the process you describe, right? how much does that also, through that process, support the body to then allow for adaptation to happen, right? And for it to support itself, do what it knows what it needs to do, divinely guided, intelligently. And w- what I think that translates to in like actually everyday life, not necessarily by lab values, is like when stuff gets tough, it doesn't rock you as much, right? Like your ability to compensate for anything that's thrown your way is really strong, right? Because, like, to me, the ability to adapt and to have a truly balanced homeostatic body where it shifts like this, right? But it's not big swings, is really you've built that reserve. The body swings very big, very wide when there's no reserve, right? And that comes from not challenging your comfort capacity, in my personal opinion. The more we challenge and the more we're uncomfortable, right, the more we have to build the reserve to create that ability to do that. So
Well,
then you've now created this place of a little bit more ease on the body and um your, like I said, your ability to navigate just life. But I also think personally, in my perspective, medically, your life gets better overall too because your body's healthier. It's more supported. Your nervous system has the ability to tune itself into what it needs to do to help support you in a much more easeful fashion. And like because it's not trying to put out fires all the time.
yeah. Yeah, I think the word that comes to me is infrastructure. You've basically built the infrastructure from a physical, physiological, mental, psychological arenas to where, you're able to withstand the what would be a big blow previously or relative to someone else. And you've got a wide enough, you know, boat to steady the storm,
Mhm.
right? You've by design, you've exposed yourself to higher levels of stress and lower levels of stress, and anywhere in between, you're now equipped with that infrastructure to not only maintain but thrive through it.
Yeah. Which changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, because I think when we can get to that place and our body knows that we're at that place, what we start dreaming of doing starts to be a lot bigger than what we ever thought before,
Mhm.
right? Like, even when you said something to me the other day, because I feel like I'm starting to really get to that place. And I said something like thinking about myself at like 80 or 90. And it's not like, "Oh, no, I just don't want a broken hip by the time I'm 80." Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more like, "What do I wanna be doing when I," and, like, I really hadn't thought about it that way. Like, I
Mhm.
have, but not really envisioned it because I don't think I felt like your body's gonna let you go only so far, right? You know what I mean? Like, so the more we can get to that place and the more that infrastructure is built, the more you start seeing possibility beyond what you thought you were capable of, and then it starts to become a reality. It's really a fascinating thing to watch, and so I'm incredibly grateful for your perspective of the body. I'm incredibly grateful for all of your life experience that you've walked. So now you bring it to me and I get to benefit from all of that. It's
Yeah.
just it's a true gift. So the last question I want to ask you before we talk about where everybody can find your work is this question I think is very good potent when you really tap into it, which is if you were to tell the version of you 7 years ago something, what would you tell him? The guy that was in academia, seeing these visions of where his life could go, not knowing for sure if it was gonna work out or not. What would you tell him?
I mean, right away is that fear word is front and center. I think a lot
Mm,
of academia is driven by fear, fear of publishing, fear of a portfolio that you have to produce, right? Or else, that's kind of the environment that you live in. Even though it's a weird dichotomy of fear and comfort,
mhm,
because you can be extremely comfortable in that one of those roles, but there's still a lot of it's still being that comfort is being held up on a string of fear,
mhm,
right? So you really do hold back on a lot of what I feel is your purpose. You're being hamstrung by that system for what your true purpose is. And a lot of that does require constant engagement in the discomfort
mhm.
and constant interaction with gratitude. And both of those two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Um, and then, be willing to try something and be okay if the result happens the way you hoped it would or if it didn't.
Yeah. Because it all leads to something that
Yeah,
you can't even predict.
each one, or whatever that timeline is,
Yeah.
it will align with whatever that purpose is.
Yeah. That's so good. So, if this stuff we're talking about hits home with some people, where can they find you to learn more about your methods and how you work and how you share your work with the world?
The first place is Instagram, of all places, Dr.Nick Trubee. And then my podcast is The Bone Health Blueprint, or my website, trubehealth.com. Those three places.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know this is only part one. So I'm excited for part two. Whenever that is inspired, it's going to be even better than this. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being you. And I'm grateful for everything you've given me and what you've helped me see that I'm capable of doing. So much
Likewise.
gratitude.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thanks for being with me today. If this conversation resonated for you, if you are ready to enter into the discomfort that's going to open up the life of your dreams, email me at erica@wholehumancapacity.com to set up a free consult where we will dive into what this means for you. And above all, if this resonated with you, like, follow, or pass this along to somebody who you know is waiting to hear this message.